Hello and welcome to another Left Seat Culture video. My name is Dale and another one from the PPL Ground School archive. This time it was aircraft general knowledge. So again, this is a video back from late 2022 when I did my PPL Ground School exams, sharing with you my thoughts, my experience of the test and kind of my study approach. So I hope it helps you in terms of your PPL Ground School studies as well. So back over to past me to talk to you about my experience and any little tips and tricks I might have for this one. And I've done it. I've passed another one of these ground school exams. This time it was aircraft general knowledge. Aircraft general knowledge, this is my 8th ground school exam and I passed it on the 17th of August, so a couple of days ago as I'm recording this, and I got 87%. So not too bad. I'll admit, a little bit disappointed. I was hoping I was going to absolutely nail this one in all the, not all of them, but in most of the mock tests that I've been doing, I've been getting 100% each time. So I was confident going into this one, but I thought I was going to get 100%. I was hoping to, so a little bit disappointed that I didn't. So let me talk to you as usual a little bit about some of the questions that came up, how I decided to do my study, and then I'll go through my little note cards and stuff that I make as usual to help me with my revision. So as with my other exams and learning, I've been using EasyPPL for both the study material and then the test / mock exam. So there's a link in the description if you decide to use EasyPPL, and I really recommend them. I was using the Pooley's books along with EasyPPL before, but for the last 4 or so exams I've just been using EasyPPL completely, and I still have 100% pass rate. I've not failed one of these exams yet and only one left to go, so fingers crossed. But yeah, link in the description, and if you decide to sign up because of these videos, just put Dale Pearson in the refer a bit. That'd be much appreciated. So yeah, aircraft general knowledge. It's obviously an online exam like all of these, 35 minutes to do 16 questions, so a reasonable amount of time based on the content in my opinion, and I took 14 minutes out of the 35 available minutes to complete this exam. In terms of my study time of EasyPPL, so I spent 5 hours and 54 minutes doing studying of the actual slides and the material, reading it through, making sure kind of understanding. That also includes going back to some of the content if it's not clear to me after doing some of the exam. So what I tend to do is I read through and go through all the slides to gain the knowledge. Then I go through the mock exams. When I get questions wrong, I will then go back to some of the slides to kind of reread things to make sure I properly understand them. I spent 2 hours and 43 minutes doing mock exams, and so that's a total of 8 hours 37 minutes doing ground school for the aircraft general knowledge exam. I did around 15 mock exams, which was around a total of 300 different questions to help prepare myself and be ready for it. So again, I still recommend EasyPPL. And the other thing I do as I go through, and I mentioned in my other videos, I have these kind of revision cards that I just got off Amazon, and anything that I guess I'm struggling to retain a little bit, or I feel I need to kind of study a little bit more, I basically make a note of them on these study cards so I can reference them, and I keep them in the car. So whilst I'm driving out and doing school runs or at work or whatever, I can just pop these out and kind of have a little quick look over them. So again, I won't go through all of them. There's 2.5 sides worth stuff in here, but the kind of thing that I write down just to remind myself. Some of these are obvious, obviously, but just to clarify things in my brain so I don't get too jumbled. The different arcs, so the green arc obviously being normal operating range, the yellow for acceptable for not for long going periods of time, and obviously red is the limits of the range. Obviously with this 4-stroke engine, because there's obviously injection and carb engines in the exams need to be familiar with. So 4-stroke engine procedure, how that works: induction, compression, power, exhaust. if you have a 0 reading on your amp meter, then if the alternator is charged in the battery, it should be slightly to the right. Just things like that. And if you're flying with an injection engine and you have power loss, you should select alternate air, non-stressed wing. The spars take up the vertical bending. I'll come back to that one in a minute because I think that's one of the questions I got wrong in the exam. How the board and pressure gauge works, air pressure alternator, destination, push-pull of the squelch, camshafts, carburetor, all different things, propeller spinners, stuff like that. So these are the kind of notes on my approach. For me, this exam was easier and the ground school was easier because I think I have a interest and background in engineering, interest in cars and motorbikes. Used to do radio controlled cars, helicopters and planes, that kind of thing. So I understand a reasonable level how engines work mechanically and things like that. And you might think that aircraft general knowledge should be an exam you do right at the beginning. And while I do think that is potentially valid, I've been doing the exams in the order that my flying school wants me to do them in. And I think having them at the end, this particular one towards the end, is good because you obviously had this time flying the plane, experiencing the different indicators, doing your own walk-arounds, inspecting the wheels and the brakes and the wings and everything. So you've already sort of built up this knowledge in the real world as opposed to just reading textbooks and then trying to align and imagine what it might be like. So I think it's good that aircraft general knowledge was one of my later exams. And in terms of the exam itself, as with all these CAA exams, it's multiple choice, and sometimes the questions are worded in a way that might throw you up. So a couple of my general rules of thumb for these things is, especially in aircraft general knowledge, any question that relates to restrictions or power levels or variances or anything, if there is an answer that relates to referring to the pilot owner's handbook, that is the right answer. So even though you might say, your instructor has taught you to go over a threshold at a certain speed or anything like that, the answer is always refer to the pilot owner's handbook. So keep that in mind. So I made a note after I came out, a couple of the questions that I wasn't too sure about, and then I'll come back to the two that I got wrong. So there was a question about what is the structural member of a wing, and there were two options that I thought were possible. So either ribs or the spar. I went with ribs. I'm pretty sure the answer should have been spar. And the reason I went for ribs though is I think both ribs and the spar are somewhat structural members of the wing, but my memory was that the spar is what allows the flexible movement of the wing, and the ribs are obviously being more structural in terms of that's what the skin connects to. So that's why I went with ribs, but I'm pretty sure I got that one wrong and it should have been spar. There's a question there that I had about what is the acceptable drop-off for magnetos. When you're testing your left and right magnetos, obviously you see an RPM drop. And again, you'll be familiar with this based on flying already and the types of aircraft you see and what kind of drop-off that you have. But again, in the questions here, there's a reference and a link to the owner's handbook, and so again you read through all that carefully, various numbers in there, and then you're looking for the drop-off that's mentioned there. So in the book, or in the question there, it was 175 RPM was the expected drop-off according to the pilot handbook in that exam. One of the other questions, disadvantage of a Venturi tube, and I pretty sure I got this one right. One of the disadvantages of the Venturi tube is it doesn't start to operate effectively until you're in flight and you have a sufficient amount of airflow to make that work. And if the suction gauge had low pressure, what is the effect? And I said that the effect is an unreadable AI in DI. Maybe I got that one wrong, I'm not too sure. So, as I mentioned, I got 87%, which means I got two of the questions wrong, and you obviously don't get to know exactly what question you got wrong, just a reference back to the CAA syllabus. So the first one I got wrong was reference 021.02.01.01, and this relates to wings and tail surfaces and the design and construction. So I'm pretty sure this related to that question about structural parts of the wing. I put ribs instead of spar, and I think the answer equals SPA. And then the second one was reference 022.01.01.01, and this relates to pressure gauges and the different types, design, operation and characteristics. So maybe the question around the low suction, I've obviously potentially answered that wrongly or misinterpreted the question, which I think is a likelihood with the way some of these questions are worded by the CAA. But that's it. I hope these videos continue to help and give you some insight if you're doing your PPL and what the exams are like and different study methods you may consider and resources. Again, EasyPPL working really well for me. I've got one ground school exam left to do, so that is Principles of Flight. I've not started looking at it yet. I'm going to look at that next week and hopefully get that done by the end of September is going to be my goal, depending on work and other things. Yeah. So I hope this video has helped you with your aircraft general knowledge in terms of prepping for the exam. Let me know how you've got on in the comments below. Also consider joining the Discord channel if you haven't done so already. It'd be great to have you there. If this video has been helpful, please consider liking it. Also consider subscribing to the channel as well. It'd be much appreciated. Press the notification bell and all that jazz as well. If I'm really lucky, I'll see you in the next video. But until the next one, take care and goodbye for now.